We are quickly approaching the new moon in Pisces. It is always such an interesting new moon because Pisces is extremely unique in the zodiac. It marks the end and the beginning of the entire zodiac. It is a transition sign called a mutable sign. And the mutable signs really reflect when the veil is thinner. And just before Luna is about to make this new moon phase, she is going to come into some really powerful alignments with Uranus. And then quickly after meeting with the sun, she just immediately moves straight into Aries, is like the next thing that happens to her. So the message is clear. Doing the opposite of another person doesn't make you unique. It makes you their shadow. In this particular episode, I wanted to share a story because I feel like Pisces is so in the veil. It's so in the in-between. It's so in this liminal space of something ending but not yet having begun yet. It's that place in between transitions, very hard to get our words around. Most of us, all of us, as we start to grow up, want to individuate, want to become ourselves. And one of the teenage energies, but doesn't have to happen at the teenage physical years, is when you have to rebel against, fight against, or distinguish yourself through another person or against another person or against a system. In a sense, it's a horrible way to build identity because it is completely toggled to an energetic that is exhausting and frustrating to be kept up over eternity. And essentially, the identity wants to become its final self, right? Like that's the whole idea of incarnating thousands of lifetimes in astrology, is that you finally reach this ripeness or this point of, yes, that is who you want to be. Those are the relationships you want to be in. It's the way you want to express. It's the way you want to move through life. And you never end up there by having to define yourself through somebody else. It really does make you their shadow and put you in your shadow. And I think that those moments where we might define ourselves against others or we might fall into our shadow often happen in the liminal. They happen in the transitions phase. They happen in the Pisces veils between, I don't know who I am anymore, sort of energy. And that's where my story is. It's a story I wanted to share because I think maybe you can relate to it and you can see how vulnerability can expose you to different things. So years ago, I unfortunately got involved in an extremely toxic MLM group. And I'll just say straight up, I think all MLM groups are toxic at this point. I don't think they're evil. I don't think they're mean. I just don't enjoy the business structure of an MLM because somebody is always paying and at the bottom, essentially drowning, unable to grow, unable to recruit, unable to do what they're supposed to do, and they will be blamed for their inability to perform. When in fact, there's only a certain amount of people in the population who would even give a chance to the idea of an MLM because at all times, there's never a moment where it doesn't have that pure, like it doesn't have a drowning bottom. And so when I got involved with it, of course, I didn't know any of that. I hadn't researched it. I hadn't looked through documentaries. And the reason I walked into that space was because I was in the liminal. I had given birth to my daughter and I was on maternity leave. And the idea was this: I was going to tell Lush that I wasn't returning as a manager because I wanted to stay home with the kids. And my manager in training, who would be taking my position in the shop, was supposed to allow me to work part-time there at my job right after my second child was born. And unfortunately, right after I put in my notice to no longer come back as a manager, I went to talk to her and she told me I couldn't come back and work part-time, which was devastating emotionally, physically, mentally, financially. We had really banked on the idea that I'd have a part-time job that would cause me very little stress while trying to be at home the majority of the time. I was really hoping I could work evenings when my husband was done with work, get out of the house. There was so much involved in that and her decision to not let me work part-time there that devastated me. All of a sudden, I was in early retirement from a job I had spent over maybe 60,000 hours on, something insane. But you can imagine going from one moment thinking, oh, this is a great plan. I get to stay at home with my kids, but I can work part-time. I already know this job. I'm very good at this job. I know the team. It's right by my house. I'll be able to continue to contribute financially. And then the person who I had trained, developed, poured my heart and soul into for years, who would just kick me out and say, no, you can't come back part-time. And I think the blow for me as I was flung into the liminal was that she told me, I know the visual displays would be great if you were here, but no. And I thought to myself, I was like, that's what you think my soul whittles down to in my contribution to a team, where I just, in that moment, my identity got severed and changed because I no longer had Lush. It was gone. It was gone in a second, and it was gone in a way I never anticipated. And it was gone through my lineage of like training and developing someone in management and customer service. And my team was gone, and I didn't want to cause trouble. And I was so afraid to say anything. The team thought I quit, even though I didn't. It was a very ugly mess. And so you could imagine why in the liminal I was so vulnerable. And I kind of went, walking over into this MLM. And in that MLM, there was this very magnetic, beautiful woman whose energy just seemed to I don't even know. I'm sure you can understand sometimes your soul just walks into a space and you're like, oh, here I fucking go again. I'm going to believe this person when I shouldn't. I'm going to fall into some sort of strange orbit around them or whatever. And so I had this very strange experience. I was brought in by two women to this MLM. They interviewed me, and one of them just really seemed like she had her shit together. And the reason she popped up in my brain, which is a perfect alignment with Mercury Retrograde and this new moon in Pisces, was I ran upon her on YouTube, and she has gone off the rails in a big way. And what I'm talking about when people go off the rails, this is like a real off the rails moment. It's like Riverdale. The TV show just goes absolutely off the rails. And you're like, what? No one could be buying this script anymore. Like, the woman is off the rails. And I was like, holy smoke. Happened for me almost, 11 or 12 years ago. But still, sometimes you can be in a moment and something can seem so pure, and then you look back and you're like, I should have gotten it. I should have seen those red flags. I should have known it, but I didn't. And one of those little nudging little red flags was this woman would tell us, the reason I'm successful is because I zig when other people zag. And I just do the opposite of what everybody else is doing, and that's why I'm successful. My team wants to be around me. I have always zigged when others zagged, and that was like her whole motto. And at the time, it felt very alluring to me, like, oh, yeah, you just do the opposite, and then you're freed. When she said that, it made sense. And now that I am extremely experienced astrologer, and I understand something called an opposition, in astrology, not just in the chart, but energetically, in the way we relate to one another. That when we are relating to each other, we essentially are doing what the planets do in the sky. We're making aspects to each other. And I didn't understand this when I first started studying astrology, because I thought, oh God, aspects, what another thing to learn, right? But now that I've practiced it for so long, I can see, oh my God, this is exactly what the astrologers were talking about. These aspects, these relationships between us, these degrees, these spaces, these ways of relating. Everything that is true in the chart of the aspects is true of us as people on Earth. And the opposition is very tricky, because that is when you would push against something to become something that you think you are, that you think you're self-defined, but you're not. Because your self-definition is still toggled to the opposite of what you are, and it creates an extreme external challenge. And I bring this up because in the liminal, any of these aspects, any of these relatings to other people become very fragile. They become very vulnerable. So when we walk through transitions, you have to be so aware that one, your radar, your orientation, your way of relating might be altered because your position was changed in a chart or your position was changed energetically. So all of a sudden, what was 120 degrees from you might now be 90 degrees from you. And it changes the flow. It changes the way energy moves between two people and two spaces. And so there has to be this reconnection with self of what you need, of what you want, of where you're going, of what you're doing, so that you can allow yourself to be in transition without being vulnerable. And it's so important, and Pisces will bring this up because Pisces is connected to the 12th house that is connected to hidden enemies. And in transition, for many people, you are a target. You are someone they are aware of, and they are ready to market to you, and they are ready to advertise to you, and they are ready to grab you. They look and track transitions. They look for when you get a new job. They look for when you sell a house. They look for when you move someplace. They look for when you launch a business. They look and have data and have ways of saying, uh-oh, this person's in transition. This is a great time to go influence them. And so that's one of the things at the heart of the new moon in Pisces is it's beautiful. We're never going to stop that energy of people coming in or wanting to influence, right? Influence is a natural expression of our beings. Influence is showing up all the way and all the time. I am technically influencing when I talk or when I share, and you are influencing when you talk and you share. The difference is that when you guide yourself through energy like Pisces, when you guide yourself through a liminal, through a transition, there has to be extreme awareness that you are not operating the way you normally would, that your decision-making might be coming through in a more sensitive way so that you can be aware of and process everything that is going to be surrounding you. Now, if you are in a transition, if you are in the liminal, if you are feeling this, your chart probably has something very interesting to say to you right now about this new moon in Pisces with the Mercury retrograde happening at the same time. It is a prime time for people to reach out from your past. It's a prime time for old patterns to reemerge, and it's a prime time for you to do it differently. Right? And to walk through liminal spaces differently, to show up in transitions differently. And I want you in your chart. So check out the AI prompt below so that you can explore it and get in there and see what it has to say about you right now. You can download the Natal Chart Navigator for free, as always, from my website. If you enjoy walking with me and doing these weekly check-ins, please go ahead and subscribe and follow along. All right, I'll see you next week. Bye.